Welcome back to Let's Talk Chelsea. I'm Daniel Childs. It's Monday. I hope you all had a brilliant weekend. And I feel like as it's Monday, we can now officially say it's the start of the Enzo Maresca era at Stamford Bridge, because we basically waited all of last week to see some form of Maresca content from the club. It didn't happen at all. We barely got any from Cobham, even though we knew players were back at the training ground for the start of pre-season. Now we have the official, very classy first interview with him. We have pictures of him around Stamford Bridge, so we're going to get into that. But some other news today. We've got some spicy Moises Caicedo quotes. We've also got stuff around Chelsea's changes behind the scenes with the medical department. Will that make any difference? And also Ben Chilwell, Manchester United apparently interested in the left back, because we did speak about Chilwell last week, so we'll go into that as well, and whether it would be a good move actually for Chelsea to sell him this summer. Please do hit the like button. Please hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any of the content. If you're listening on the podcast, it does us a great service if you do give us 5 stars to get more people listening. But so Enzo Maresca giving his first interview. Let's just go through some of the clips. I'll sort of run through some of the big quotes, and then I'll give you kind of a more general reaction to the interview.
Yeah, it's been quite busy. It's normal at the beginning. It's always in the same way. You know, you try to know all the people around the training ground, some of the players that they were already there. But yeah, the feeling is fantastic.
You mentioned the players. It is a squad full of talent and personality. How excited are you to work with them on a day-to-day basis?
Very excited. One of the reasons I'm here is because I'm convinced that the squad is very good. As you said, it's full of talent. So the most important thing now is that we are able to create the right culture that drives us through the season. No, just trust the process, trust the idea, being behind the team, and for sure we're gonna join the journey. That is not like every club, every manager. Will be not easy, because there is nothing easy, but for sure we're gonna enjoy our journey.
So the issue I think with these, right, is because they happen so frequently. The first interview with a new head coach, I mean, at least over the past year, basically, it's been an annual tradition now. We had Mauricio Pochettino's effectively about this time last year with Lee Parker, and now, of course, we have Enzo Maresca. And especially, not only in recent Chelsea history, but especially in this ownership, we've at least gone through this situation 4 times. I mean, I don't really think you actually should count Lampard, because, of course, Lampard is not only a club icon, but he returned to coach for an interim role. But at the very least, we can go through Graham Potter, Pochettino, and now Enzo Maresca. Let's hope we don't get another one for quite a while. So, of course, it does lose a little bit of that weight. And I guess because it is a club interview, it's not going to be the most challenging interview. And I think it's very easy for any head coach to say things before a ball has been kicked. And I think, as people have rightly pointed out today, you look back to that first Pochettino interview. I remember reacting to it on the channel. I remember being quite impressed by Poch, the way he spoke in that interview. But of course, a couple months later, once games started being played and Chelsea didn't win, especially early on in the season, his tune, of course, changed. And I think it's fair enough. Listen, I'm not going to have a go at Maresca for trying to play a little bit safer, or at least kind of saying things that can be inferred as being a little bit contradictory, because I think all Chelsea head coaches of recent times have said it, right? And it is just natural that not only are you in a safe environment of a club interview, which is never going to be the most explosive, most likely, but then on top of that, we haven't even seen a Maresca Chelsea team play yet. And, you know, what he says right now is obviously going to be very different to the heat of the season. So that context aside, you know, I don't think it was the most revealing interview, I have to say. I don't think it was a bad interview. I think it's very difficult to make it a bad interview with those conditions already met. I think the more interesting thing for me, I just would have preferred if Lee Parker, or just in months to come, hopefully we do get more information about this. Maresca spoke a lot about culture, and it's not, as I say, it's not a frustration with Maresca. I hear a lot of people in football talk about culture, and I just would like a little bit more depth on what that actually means, because it can feel a little bit hollow and like one of those buzzwords that get thrown out a number of times. So hopefully in more extensive interviews, and I assume the longer he stays at Chelsea, this will become clearer, which, is kind of just a byproduct of that. But it was nice, obviously him referencing the Italian heritage that Chelsea has. I know my mate Louis Benavente is very excited about that. It was nice to hear that. It was nice to hear the way he pronounces Chelsea. Some people thought I was having a go at him. No, I do like the way he pronounces Chelsea. And, for him, obviously, he was referencing his time at Leicester and believing that the squad is very talented. Again, these are kind of obvious things that a head coach is going to say. But other than that, of course, there is the part right at the end of the interview where he's given the opportunity to kind of send a message, and he does say, trust the process. And unfortunately, again, this isn't Maresca's fault. This is the social media age we live in now. Trust the process as a phrase has become a little bit of a meme at this point. So it's very hard to hear that and not, go into what it has become, because it's kind of been beaten down. I mean, it's like what world class has become, generational. These phrases in football, unfortunately, because they get so often used on social media and kind of bastardized to a sense where, they don't hold much weight anymore. But I can understand why he would say that. But he did kind of, in one breath, say, this is going to take time. It's not going to be easy. But then also, of course, acknowledging how big Chelsea is. Similar way Pochettino said last year, right? And I think a lot of Chelsea coaches say that, because there is this kind of very real conflict where people want to kind of see things be given time, but there is a reality at the height and the pressure and expectation that comes with being a coach at this level that means that you do have to get results. And I do think that, trust comes with success. Trust comes with results. And I don't think that's unreasonable. That's the same for any head coach, right? Like, you don't just get endless patience. And, some of his very recent predecessors, Maresca, of course, have found that out. So, of course, I think it was an assured start, but now the real stuff begins. And I think that the big questions we're all asking currently is, how will that first Chelsea team look when we face Man City? But even, of course, I'm not someone who dismisses pre-season. I take a lot of interest in watching how a team plays, develops, how they're set up, how the coach is utilising the players at his disposal across pre-season. So those are going to be very fascinating things. But as a first interview goes, he hasn't done his first presser yet, which I assume is going to come pretty soon. And, again, he's up against some very tall orders here. Like, where, you talk about Jose Mourinho first press conference, first impression. That's, the greatest in Chelsea history and will probably never be toppled. The Thomas Tuchel first press conference. I feel like the first press conference actually can be more memorable, because I even think Tuchel did a small interview with Chelsea before he did that first presser. So we'll see how he does when he faces the media, I'm sure, pretty soon. We got some more spicy quotes. I thought, we're going to mainly be talking about Maresca, but Moises Caicedo has caused a little bit of a ruckus, I guess, on social media and people reacting to this, because whilst, of course, at the Copa America, whilst on international duty, he's given some quotes about last season. And he said, at Brighton, it was all tactical, just with the ball, tactical. And at Chelsea, it was run. And it was very difficult for me. With Chelsea, I always ran a bit more. And with Brighton, we almost always had the ball. With Chelsea, it was a different football and we had to run more. So, of course, people have kind of taken this and gone, he's really having a go at Mauricio Pochettino. Why didn't Pochettino have any tactical plan? And I guess on a positive sense, with the way Maresca wants to set the team up, this hopefully is going to suit what Caicedo was able to do with Brighton a bit more. I do think one of Maresca's big challenges is in that central midfield area. It's actually been a persistent, in different ways, it's been a persistent challenge for several Chelsea head coaches, I think, in two ways. I think getting balance in that central midfield, but also maybe getting more goals. And that's where you hope that a player like Dewsbury Hall, who of course provided a lot of goals and then product from Maresca last year, could do so for Chelsea, and other players contributing along the way too. And I think that Caicedo, listen, it's very easy to go and say, Pochettino had no kind of tactical framework at all. That doesn't really explain how Caicedo got better as the season went on. That doesn't explain some of his very good performances towards the end of the season, because, I talk a lot about sort of the disparity, or like the weight we give towards what a coach's fault is, responsibility, praise, to what a player's responsibility, how they're at fault, how much praise they get. And I don't think it's all or the other. I think, there is a reality that, Caicedo, I think, took time to acclimatise to Chelsea. Maybe it was the weight of that expectation. Maybe it was adjusting to a new surrounding. And I actually think even before his, admittedly, very good run at the end of the season, he did have some strong performances earlier in the year that people kind of outside of Chelsea weren't really acknowledging. So I think that's a fair point. I just think that Caicedo, the most exciting thing for me is, especially on the ball. Off the ball was kind of my big thing with Chelsea of signing a player like Caicedo, because defensively we were really exposed at times. And even with him, we were exposed because you can look at Pochettino's structure in midfield, which at times was woeful. There's no denying that. Hopefully, Maresca will be able to fix that, but also capitalise on what I thought was a really good run of form by Caicedo, where actually creatively he was contributing a lot of decisive passes which were getting Chelsea further up the pitch. So if he can marry that and do that across the course of a season, I think it's going to make a ton of difference for Chelsea. And actually, touch wood, he was one of the more durable players actually across the course of the season, wasn't he? Which was good to see. And talking about being durable, Training Ground Guru has been reporting about some of the big changes in Chelsea's performance and medicine department. We're not going to spend long on this, but basically we kind of have a load of new names. So Craig Roberts, Bryce Kavanagh, Stephen Lewis, Marion Jones and Richard Aikenhead are all now part of Chelsea's performance and medicine department. And, you can dismiss this because these aren't new signings. This isn't a new head coach. These aren't names that people know frequently. They aren't players on the pitch, but make no mistake about it, Chelsea's injury problem was so severe last year and has been for a period of time. Chelsea and Maresca, any head coach, needs to be in a situation where they can call upon players on a regular basis. For whatever you think of Pochettino's own ability or own responsibility within why players were getting injured or not, maybe you could contribute that to the run that Caicedo was talking about. It has been a persistent problem even pre-Pochettino. It was a problem pre-Graham Potter. So this has been going on for a very long time. I'd even say our injury problems were even going before, maybe even the takeover. I think they've become worse because maybe that chaos of personnel behind the scenes. But this needs to be resolved, because it's all right for whatever players we could bring in. We have brought in this summer, or the players who we're excited about, who have been performing well over the course of the last season. If you walk into like May, the key areas of the season where you have like 14 players out, or for a majority of the season you have 6 to 7 players on your injury list, we do not want to see the meme grow of like being on your rehabilitation program. I don't want to see a load of players undergoing their rehabilitation program across the course of next season. I want to see them undergoing a great footballing program with Maresca on the pitch. Like that has to be a big thing. So my hope is this shuffle, these changes are directly addressing that problem, because it could make a huge difference for Maresca if he has, it sounds obvious, but has more to play with across the course of the season. The final thing is Ben Chilwell. So got to give credit to the byline. Alex Goldberg was reporting initially about this. Now it's been backed up by Sami Mokba, I think, from the Daily Mail. Apparently, Man United are interested in Ben Chilwell, and that interest is concrete. We spoke about Ben Chilwell last week, and it doesn't surprise me that his name is coming up once again, because naturally there may come a point where his contract is running down. I think there's only like two years left. I think it is now, over 2 years since we signed him in 2024. Sorry, not 2024, 2020, the summer of 2020. And his kind of fit with Maresca is obviously in doubt. And whether right now, because he is one of the highest earners in the squad, actually, if you look at him compared to some other players, like he's not where Raheem Sterling is, but he's not also maybe going on the lowest wage at Chelsea, because he was bought pre the Clearlake takeover. So there could be a question of whether this is the time to cash in, especially for a player who has had a lot of injury setbacks. I mean, that is one of the things I'm a fan of Chilwell, I really am. He's one of my favourite players on the squad, but I'd be denying reality if we sit here and try and avoid the fact that this is a guy who is one of the most unreliable for staying fit over the course of a season. And, do you have much trust and faith that even with the quality he has when he's on the pitch, and put aside the tactical maybe misalignment or whatever it is that might not fit with what Maresca wants to do with a left back, you have to also factor in, can he actually remain durable? And when we just spoke about the injury problems that Chelsea have had, and whether actually getting that wage off the bill, whether actually looking at this and going, this is the right time to cash in, because his value actually may depreciate even more. So this is a time to cash in. And the problems that Man United may have with an injury-prone player. I think, Luke Shaw and Ben Chilwell in the same team. I mean, both those players have had a lot of injury issues as well. And we spoke on Friday about Vega coming in, a new young player, a player to hopefully add back up at left back and hopefully maybe even in the future become a first choice player. So there's a lot of movement in that area. The one thing I would say is that I do ponder Marc Cucurella going quite deep in the Euros. I actually think is going to help both Vega and Ben Chilwell, because Cucurella probably won't return until, I want to say, August. I mean, I know it depends each time about how much time players have off. I think they all have a very standard, like maybe 3 weeks after when they exit the tournament. Some players may return earlier because they want to get back and competing, and that may be Marc Cucurella. But usually, the deeper you go in this tournament, especially if you get to the semi-final and final, if we remember a couple of years ago when we had Azpilicueta, who else was there? Mason Mount, Reece was there as well. There may have been someone else get to the Euros sort of semi-final and final. Is those players barely played any time in pre-season. It was still a COVID kind of pre-season. It wasn't a full pre-season undertook after winning the Champions League. But, those players, didn't feature much at all. So that then gave, in that situation, I think specifically the case of Azpilicueta not really being there, it gave Trevor Chalobah a great chance to break into the first team. And I do ponder whether that for Chilwell and Vega could prove to be quite beneficial of getting really good minutes, substantial minutes in pre-season for Maresca and maybe changing some minds. Actually, Chilwell looks like a good player, absolutely under Maresca, and there's no tactical problem. We can, he's still going to be first choice. And what then does that mean for Marc Cucurella if he continues to have a strong tournament? Actually, could there be more offers for Cucurella at the end of the Euro? So instead of Chilwell leaving, it's Cucurella. So it is a very, very uncertain area just generally, because not only are we hearing reports that there are clubs interested in Ben Chilwell, Matt Law, I think, has consistently said as well, some others too, that Cucurella potentially is up for sale as well. So because it's so uncertain, I think it's very difficult right now, unless something really changes quickly, to make a firm judgment on who's going to be there. I can't tell you. I think the only player currently actually that I could tell you that's going to be there is actually Vega. I know he hasn't officially signed yet. I believe he's doing his medical today. That's quite hilarious, really, given that this was a player not many of us even knew the name of recently. But because it's so up in the air, it's hard to really gauge. So Chilwell, would it be the right time to cash in on him? Do you actually think that'd be a major mistake, strengthening Man United, a team that we suspect we'd be competing with for Champions League football this year? That's also something to factor in. So let me know your thoughts on that and everything else I spoke about today in the comments below. Follow me across socials at SonOfChelsea, and I will see you again very soon. All the best.